Well, probably many, but now we're live on YouTube. So hello, YouTube.
So, welcome to our virtual rage room. Okay.
We're going to a real rage room next
That's
month.
what I hear.
What a dream.
Leave it to my sister. I'm like, I smash things anyway. It's usually an accident, but I don't know if that's beneficial to me.
Why isn't this working?
Smash Bros.
Why does it say stop when we haven't started? Why won't it let me hit stop? I think this is broken.
It's like a rage room. Gotta hit stuff.
Break stuff. That was a Limp Bizkit song. Don't ask me why I know that. Hello, YouTube, again.
You're a child of the 90s.
I've always wanted to go to a rage room.
I thought you were going to say you always wanted to go to a Limp Bizkit concert.
That's not true. Did not have. I remember seeing, they acted like it was the end of the world when they did Woodstock in '99 and Limp Bizkit came out at night and, everyone, you remember this? When they, burned the whole thing down and it was just, mass chaos and people were getting, basically almost murdered. The UPS man is here. And, yeah. It's fine. We're just on YouTube.
They're used to us.
They're used to us. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'll never shoot a movie. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Right. Do you sign anything? Don't do good. Have a good. You too. Have a good. This is the Ulster bag.
We got a package.
Super exciting. This is our unboxing video
Maybe we can get more views.
of an unboxing off camera. So
Guess what it is? All right. We're going to work this time? Let's see.
This is our entirely audio unboxing video.
Somebody has to be into that.
Probably it's some
The ASM
ASMR thing.
commodity. I think I had a stroke.
Did you have enough coffee today?
Probably not, but that's also par for the course.
Do you ever have enough coffee?
No. The pumpkin spice coffee creamer is back at Meyer, though, I would like to say.
Well, there you go.
So,
It doesn't feel right at 90 degrees, but
I
today's 80.
I drink it in the morning with my eyes closed and the air conditioned on full blast, and I think to myself, it's
When I came
happening.
out this morning, it was actually chilly. Felt like a summer morning ought to feel.
Chilly. Okay.
Chilly and very wet with dew.
Don't
It
like
was-
wet. Don't like the word do.
Didn't
Okay.
either.
Gonna start this
Not
now.
even Mountain Dew.
Sorry, YouTube. Hold on, I'll wait till we start the podcast. Sort of just coming in. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
To answer your previous question, no, I don't like Mountain Dew.
Welcome to something to talk about where Stacy does not like dew.
Do the do. I'll do a Baja Blast once in a while,
Yeah. All right.
but just straight up Mountain Dew.
Jason Momoa says the mountains are calling.
It's not, doesn't do it for me.
Ah.
By the way,
Wordplay. Look at us.
speaking of things that I associate with Mountain Dew, a bag of Doritos at Meijer is $4.99.
That is a good connection. That is a rough price.
For Doritos? Not even the family size, the regular size bag of Doritos.
Ouch.
I just wanted some Cool Ranch. And I was like,
So, crazy thing is, that doesn't even sound expensive to me right now because I've been at the fair all week. And
well,
so,
yeah. Golly. Yeah, I have no more money after going to the fair for one day, so I can't imagine. RIP to your bank account.
I've not had a whole lot of fair food.
You really need to have that corn.
I almost did yesterday. The line was long. And I was
Oh.
like, so it was at the Two Buccaneers place, right?
No,
Oh, it wasn't.
because that's
there.
where I usually get my corn. Maybe they do have it there,
Okay.
but this was a different place, and they only sold turkey legs and corn.
Is it like over by the commercial buildings or by the rides?
It's by the rides,
Or by the
like
rides. I don't even get over there most of the time.
like
So,
facing the rides
facing the rides.
on the corner.
Okay. I'll have to check it out.
If you like corn,
They have a similar thing, from what I'm told, at the Two Buccaneers.
well,
place.
when I go back tomorrow, I might get it from there because that's where I usually get it.
Mm.
And if they have it with the hot Cheetos,
That's what I was told.
I just like hot Cheetos and I like corn.
That seems like a good thing.
Hot
right?
Cheetos, good. Corn, good.
Sounds like a winning combination.
The only thing I didn't get at the fair the other day was an elephant ear, so I definitely have to get that.
Yesterday, I had Uncle Ben's pretzel pocket for the first time.
Was it filled
ever.
with something?
Yes.
What?
Ham and cheese was mine. Shelley's
Ham and cheese was mine.
Shelley's was a Philly cheesesteak.
Ooh.
Emma's was a turkey and Swiss, I think.
Was it like Hot Pocket shaped?
Kind of, yeah. Like it was like a Danish, but not Danish.
The Danish are very offended.
Yes, but the
interesting.
Amish are very happy. So
Here are welcome to Fair Food Talk. Have you ever had the hot dog pretzel from Auntie Anne's? Pretzel hot dog?
No, but Suzanne got one from
This
Uncle
place?
Ben's. Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason we went there is because they take a card. We were out of cash,
Oh.
and they don't charge a fee for taking the card, which most
Yeah,
of
everyone was
places
like,
do.
it's $1 extra if you charge for your card.
You're
I'm
at
like,
the fair. You're paying $17 for
I'm
your
like,
meal.
you're literally giving me lemonade for $13.
And you
That's
don't.
90% water.
So, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to pay an extra fee, but they're paying a fee, so it's whatever. But I don't have to go off of the
Right.
fairgrounds and go find an ATM that I can.
Right.
They have ATMs there where you're going to pay like a $3 fee or
Right.
more.
True.
So
Anyway,
it's $1. But Uncle Ben's doesn't charge that. So.
I don't think it's called Uncle Ben's. I think it's just
Uncle
called
Ben's is rice.
I know. I think it's just called Ben's, and
Uncle
you're thinking
Ben's
of
is
Uncle.
rice.
But they canceled him, so
I think they brought him back, didn't they? I know they brought back Aunt Jemima.
no, they didn't.
They did
It's
too.
Pearl Milling still.
No, they made a big deal about it.
I have to research this.
Um,
I keep seeing Pearl Milling Company.
I don't know because I don't buy it, but I saw I canceled them.
I canceled their cancel.
No, I saw an article about it
I'll
that
have
they
to
were
look at
bringing it
that.
back.
But yeah, they canceled Uncle Ben. I think it's just Ben's Pretzels. I'm fairly
Ben's
sure.
pretzels,
Yeah,
Big Bad Ben.
Big Bad Ben and his Big Bad Pretzels.
So
What are we talking about? Big Bad Divorces.
the hot pocket of divorce, I guess. So yes,
Oh,
it
gosh.
is.
What do the fair and divorces have in common?
Probably more than we have time to
They're
discuss.
both
I guess.
expensive. No, I'm just kidding. Not wrong.
Valid point. It's a very valid point. And
And you'll probably gain weight after you go through.
very good chance you'll have some indigestion from it.
Oh.
So, in the context of the 10 Commandments and the 7th commandment that you shall not commit adultery, this is our third week that we've
I
spent
need to move
on.
this forward because I feel like I'm a hunchback when I'm.
Is it going to slide back like it did last time? In the context of Deuteronomy 5:18, we've been talking about adultery from various perspectives. And this week we looked at what Jesus said about divorce and remarriage and connecting that to adultery. And so, I'll just read just to get us right into it. As right into it as we get realistically.
This is probably, I mean, this is not bad.
So this is Jesus. I'll start with verse 27 of Matthew 5. We'll read through 32 as he starts out talking about adultery and then goes directly from adultery into divorce. So this is in the, what we call the Sermon on the Mount. We've had the Beatitudes, and then he has this sort of a. What am I trying to say? Words are really helpful in a podcast.
I'm
aren't
still
they?
stuck on Uncle Ben.
So-
Ben might be an uncle, but it's not Uncle Ben.
And now I'm having old Rice-A-Roni commercials in my head.
It's the San Francisco.
That's exactly what's in my mind.
Anyway.
I see the trolley coming
I
over the hill.
apologize.
Not distracted at all. But anyway, Matthew 5, 27 to 32. He's in the middle of clarifying, the Lord is clarifying the perspective that they have on the law. And so I think it's significant for us to recognize that when Jesus says these things, he's not changing the law. And a lot of times I think we act as if he is. Like,
This is
the
what it used to
Old
be.
Testament
right.
God said this, but I'm telling you this. No, that's not it at all. He's saying you've been focused on this list keeping. You've seen these things and you think you're okay because, you haven't killed anybody. You haven't
Right.
cheated on your wife per se, but your heart has done all of these things. Let me get you in on where we're going.
Well-
This isn't about technicalities. This is about wholeheartedly living for
I
God.
think since when I was I can't speak today.
So we are struggling.
From the time I was a child, I've often seen the Pharisees as that, as
Yeah.
checking the boxes and
Right.
keeping to the law to the letter, and Jesus being like, "You're missing it."
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's
And that is very much the point. And even, as he talks about your righteousness exceeding that of the Pharisees and scribes, what he's telling them is of the most religious, righteous, pious people that they know, the scribes and the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, they're missing it
Mhm.
because they're focused in on the checkbox, the technicalities. And they've added the rules, all the rabbinical teachings that come along that do all these different things are missing the point of what the law was always about. That's really where it's going.
Well, and furthermore, I mean, this is 3 weeks in the seventh commandment,
And I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
and it's one sentence.
Yeah.
So it's so much.
It's unlikely that we'll do that on the next.
Well, I
couple
know, but I'm
commandments,
saying,
but,
like, it seems simple enough, but myself included, when you think, thou shalt not commit adultery, okay, don't cheat on your
Right.
spouse,
Right.
period. But clearly there's so much more than that.
And I think we're learning that more and more today. Well, I think it's always been relatively evident, but because we've provided and invented new ways to sin, old sins, new packaging, we can see much more. And the number of people that I've dealt with in the last 20 years, but you could narrow it down in just the last 5 or 10 years. A huge number of people where the adultery struggles that they're coming up with have to do with things like pornography, online chat rooms, things like that, not a person-to-person interaction. And so the traditional way of looking at adultery, if it's just sleeping with somebody that's not your mate, okay, well, that seems to be the one thing that nobody minds anymore. I don't know. It's crazy how we do it.
I had to write an article the other day about emotional infidelity.
Yeah.
And it said, there doesn't need to be any physical intimacy whatsoever, but it's just basically having an affair without the physical side.
Right. And we're having so many of those types of things. And that's always been the case,
Right.
And it used to be much more normal. It's kind of the old adages that we've, since the 60s, 70s, we've really been actually working hard as a society to change the psychology of men and women, to feminize men and to masculinize women. And so as we have, in an effort to what we might look at as leveling the playing field, because it's so unjust that this is a man's world and all these other things that people say. What you used to see as a stereotype was men would have the physical sexual affairs.
Right.
Obviously women are involved as you're doing it, but women would tend toward those emotional affairs as you're going through it. And now, and I think, were you talking to me about this? No, it was my daughter-in-law, Courtney, because their pastor just did 3 weeks on sexual sin. And interestingly, the timing, they're not in the same place of the Bible as we are. We're doing different
It's
things.
almost as if the Bible is consistent.
And yet, came up with this little mini series that they were doing. Anyhow, they were talking about pornography, and the statistics on pornography have changed so much from when I was in high school. And rough numbers, these are according to, I believe it was Barna. It could be Pew, but I'm pretty sure it was Barna. Their numbers are showing 70% of self-identified Christian men admitting to regularly using pornography, and 40% of self-identified Christian women as using pornography regularly. So it's such a huge shift that used to be almost an entirely male issue, and the numbers were closer to like 50%. Now, because of the prevalence of things, the internet, obviously, just everything is sped up. The thing, you didn't have to, in the old days, you'd have to go and seek it out, and now it's seeking you out. It's coming after you. And
it's instant.
So it's become such an epidemic with women, particularly young women. And there's a million reasons for it. I have my thoughts on it that nobody cares about because I don't go to Harvard or something. But as you're looking at how things have changed, it's still exactly what Jesus said. These are heart issues. Whether we're talking about murder or adultery, divorce, or honesty, whatever it is, it's not just what you do outwardly, it's what you desire inwardly. Do you desire to live wholeheartedly for God? And if I'm going to claim to be faithful to my wife, but my hands stay to myself, but my eyes are everywhere else, well, then I might not have technically committed adultery, but in my heart, I've been unfaithful. In my mind, I've been unfaithful. And those are, mean, the reality is, this is why Jesus is saying this is, when we're talking about being able to violate the 10 Commandments without ever doing anything, just violating them in your heart. No wonder Paul can say all have sinned. No wonder, we can see that through Isaiah, that there's no one who does good. When we think we're pious because we haven't, and Jesus brings this out several times. The rich young ruler comes to mind. Oh, I've kept all the law. And I was like, oh, okay. And I don't want to attribute things to Jesus that are not in the scripture, but in my mind, I can see him kind of rolling his eyes and like, all right, bro, really, but he says, okay, so one thing you lack, sell everything you've got, give it to the poor. Why? Because it's bad to have wealth? No, because Jesus doesn't say that to other wealthy people. He says it to this guy. Why is it? Because his heart is still clinging to stuff. So you have maybe kept, you
check the boxes.
Maybe you've kept the law
Right.
if you're telling the truth, and you're probably overestimating your own piousness because that's what we do. But your heart isn't for God. Your heart is for your own stuff. You're still living that life. And so when we look at what Jesus says here, and I was going to read the text and I haven't done that yet. This is all just been talking about. This is what we call prolegomena. Anyway, it's not quite, but anyhow, as we're looking at it, Jesus is saying you think you're keeping the law by not doing this. And that's kind of the nature of the law, right? The law by its nature is prohibitive. It prohibits you from doing this. The speed limit says you can't drive over this. This is your maximum speed limit.
Can't drive
You
55.
can't, the law by its nature tells you when you have done wrong. It shows you when you violate it, rather than the positive. But with every prohibition, there's an implied necessary opposite. And so there is the opposite of breaking this is where you should be. And that's what we see here. And Jesus says, again, this is starting with verse 27. I'm going to actually read it this time.
Go for it.
From the NIV, he says, you have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out, throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. It's been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her the victim of adultery. And anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. And then he goes on to talk about oaths, which we didn't really cover with this. But you can see how the speaking of oaths, the taking of vows, is connected to marriage, to the
Right.
covenant relationship. And his whole point here is, as he's talking about, is you're making vows, but you're not taking them seriously. You're not thinking this through. You're swearing against whatever thing that you have no control over anyway. He says, again, you've heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. So clearly the Lord is not against vows. He's not against oaths as a broader principle. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it's God's throne. You can't affect that. Or by the earth, for it is his footstool. Or by Jerusalem, for it's the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. In other words, be a person of your word.
Right.
And if you need these things to bolster your credibility, you already don't have credibility. And by doing this, you end up in your dishonesty, in your looseness with this, you end up profaning holy things, which has always been against the commandment. So when we see, the misuse of God's name, same principle here. So just don't, but again, God commands them to take oaths. So
Right.
that's not the point. It's not that wooden literalism. Just like, he's not saying you should, every man who, looks at someone when he shouldn't, or gets caught up in it, then, you should divorce them. There would be no marriages if that were the case. That's just realities that we deal with. The issue is for the offending person. Don't think you're clean because your hands are clean. You're clean when your heart is clean. And that presents a real problem. So anyway, with all of that, looking at this picture of marriage and divorce, we live in a world where that's so prevalent. Partly because even in the church, we haven't even wrestled with these issues.
Because they step on toes.
Well, for sure. I mean, that's as we've progressed over the last 50 years, we talk about these things less. So then when some internet preacher does, then they go super viral or they get canceled or both because you're saying these controversial things, which shouldn't really be controversial, but we have governed ourselves according to our own wisdom, according to our own flesh for so long, even in the church, that to stem the tide, to just go back to the basics of life, which is what Jesus is doing here. When he clarifies it, that's what he's saying. You've missed it because you've complicated things with all these rules. The law is deeper than this.
Yeah.
And you can have all the technicalities that you want. You can come up with all these different ways. He said this about the Sabbath with all their rules about how to keep the Sabbath. You missed the point. This is a day to be holy, to be set apart to God. It's for you to help build you. It's not a trap. It's not we're supposed to serve the Sabbath, but the Sabbath in being set aside serves us. It glorifies God. It's for his good, or for his glory and our good. And in the same way, all of the law, whenever we keep the law, we're glorifying God and we're benefiting ourselves, right? It's a good thing where we're not sacrificing for it. The devil will tell us we are, but we're actually gaining. When Adam and Eve ate the fruit in the garden, they thought for that moment, they were deceived into believing they were missing out, and they were giving something up by obeying God. And so to turn from that restrictive, oppressive regime of God enslaving you, you can exercise your free will, which is why I think we have such an emphasis these days on free will. Most of the time, the way we talk about it is somewhat absurdist and illogical because we say things that are self-contradictory and don't make sense. God is sovereign and we have ultimate free will. Those are two completely contradictory statements. Cannot both be true in the same sense at the same time. Do we have free will and that we have meaningful choice? Yes, for sure, we see that. But is God sovereign? Yes. How do those things fit together? I don't know. But the reality is there is a certain scope, a certain limit to our free will. And the idea that we can somehow be fully autonomous and have no consequences to our choices is ludicrous on the face of it.
Right.
I can make lots of choices. I always will have to face the consequences of them. And, as a mom, that teaching your child that, as your son grows up, the reason that we introduce unpleasant discipline is to help them learn before life slaps them around and says, okay, you made a stupid choice. Now you're going to pay for it for the rest of your life.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
That's right. So, and when we play around with marriage and sexuality and family, this is what we end up with. And that's where we are today as a society. Look around, all the statistics show it. We deny it. It's insane to me. We can do the research. And as much as I talk about it, I don't really care all that much about research. I care about what God said, because what God said is true, and I know that. But when all of the secular researchers basically support the truth of what God said, and then we look at that and say, well, we're going to come up with a completely opposite conclusion because of the fact that we can see how this is affecting children. Divorce ruins children. Well, that means that we just need to destigmify the divorce. We should make divorce okay. We should make all kinds of families okay. We should never use the term broken family because no family is broken. We're all equal. It's all the same. And there's all kinds of different families. And some kids have, two mommies and two daddies and all these different kinds of things. That's just not real.
Right.
And so we can look at it, we can see it, we can measure it. And in the sinfulness of our hearts, we still choose to go our way instead of God's way in the face of it.
Well, the thing that, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I don't think I've ever said that before in my life.
In all honesty, the horse doesn't care.
Truth is dead.
It's like shingles, but never mind.
Wow,
Okay.
It's got dark quickly.
Shingles doesn't care.
I'm gonna forget the core reality, you said. You have it in front of you?
Wholehearted living for God must reflect his faithfulness and purity.
Yeah. And so it's very easy for me to look at that and think of two different sets of people. So I'm trying to stay in the married people column because, you know, we've talked about the purity culture of the 90s and things like that. And I think it's shaped a lot of the way people.
Which is not a thing.
Well, right,
You know,
right. But it
that's
was
what
also,
drives
but
me
it was
crazy.
also a, you know, quote unquote thing.
2,000 years of church history, and we're going to put it all in the 90s and blame youth pastors.
Right. But at the same time, okay, so that generation of people, which was around me, I was born in 88, so I grew up in the 90s. And my sister was a teenager in the 90s. Those people then got married and I think saw things differently. And that, maybe I'm wrong, but that kind of spiraled, I believe, to where we are today with each generation looking at purity a different way.
So what do you mean they saw things differently?
I think that the purity culture, quote unquote, became something that a lot of people tried to rebel against and took that into marriage. And whether that means like
took the rebellion into marriage. Okay.
I may be totally wrong here, but this is just my observation.
I'm just trying to track with you.
Yeah, took the rebellion into marriage. And I think, you know, I've heard, going back to the pornography thing, I've heard people say that that's how they keep their relationship exciting. They watch it together, or, you know.
There are counselors who will recommend it. There are TED Talks out there about it.
Or there are,
there are TED Talks recommending adultery as a good thing.
Right. And people have, you know, open marriages where they can date others or whatever. And it's, I'm not even.
Real push for that. Even like in my news feed on, when I open up my internet search for the Bing, is that the Microsoft one? So when it comes up and it has all the daily headlines and all that kind of stuff, the number of polyamory and you know,
and I'm not even necessarily talking about that. Like you have, you got one wife, because that stuff, like the polyamory or whatever, that's been around for a while. But I feel like more recently, the things like open marriages or
that was the thing in the 70s. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun.
Maybe it's just because
it just gets repackaged and recycled.
Well, like maybe it's just more in your face now than it was because of the internet or something like that. But I feel like each generation kind of influences the next one,
right?
And that can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. Like, you know, people say Gen X, their parents didn't pay attention to them, so they pass that on to the millennials, and then millennials smother their children, and that's why Gen Z is so soft or whatever. You know, it's all kind of a ripple effect. And I think that for me, and when I was born, that purity culture of the 90s and the rebellion against it has led to where we are right now.
The funny thing to me is that in the 90s, because everybody likes to say that,
the 1900s,
you know, the purity culture of the 90s and all that, it's the people that are usually saying that, the ones who have written on it and have become famous on it, are youth group kids of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I'm going to use the term pseudo-Christian writers, people who grew up in the Christian space, right?
We think of like the WWJD bracelets and the Jesus fish and the, you know, whatever.
So what happened was, because the 90s was very much like the 70s. I've, you know, been watching this, you know, leapfrogging of decades since I was a kid. So the 60s and 80s had a lot of parallels. The 70s and 90s had a lot of parallels. And as you go through it, what was happening was the idea of purity was so contrary to mainstream in the 90s.
Right.
Everything was so foul, so vile, compared to what it was in the 80s, which was pretty foul and vile, compared to what it was in the 70s, which was pretty foul. And, you know, we just keep progressing.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And so
from my
then the
window of
backlash,
time,
it wasn't really even a backlash. It was because of that, there was this push in to talk about sexuality because people were talking about it in the mainstream culture. Schools in the 90s began to push passing on condoms to kids and things like that. So those that wasn't so much a thing here locally, but it was edging in.
I was in fifth grade and had sex education.
Yeah. And so, well, and that even has evolved because, you know, when I was in school, the girls had that in fourth grade and the boys had it in sixth grade, I think, because girls matured more quickly than boys, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. But even then, it wasn't about how to have sex
Sure.
or things like that. It was about, this is what's happening in your body.
Right.
So the concept of sex education completely changed, right? So very different from what it is. And all of this dynamic that was so prevalent in the 90s made it necessary for church youth groups to say, wait, listen, Linda,
Linda.
the rules that you're hearing out here in the world, that's not real. Let's get back to what the scripture says. At the same time, there was a massive push, much like the 70s, you saw this massive push for evangelism in youth groups. So what ended up happening is you're bringing in tons of kids. Everybody, you're bringing in, and you can remember from
Sure.
from your time in the late 90s, early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, when everybody in the school was in one way or another connected with the major youth group in the area. So you're bringing all these kids in, most of which are not saved, most of which are not, even the ones that are saved, are not getting particularly discipled, but you're getting into behavioral things. And so then, and it's necessary, but the combination of a large number of people who don't have a foundation, they don't have the prolegomena that they need to be able to understand
This
it.
makes me think of phenomena.
I should have Jesse write a song to that. But anyway, as they're doing that, it's a dangerous combination. So now it becomes well-meaning, but unintentionally can become a behavioral checklist.
Right.
And
Going back to what we were talking about with these
absolutely.
Right.
So then if you don't have a relationship with Christ, now it's just behavioral rules.
Right.
And what we need is to not just pray a prayer and say, oh yes, I've asked Jesus into my heart. I need to recognize that I need to be in him. I need to come to a place of dying to myself. And if I don't die to myself, then all of the rules are going to be warring against. I mean, you're going to have that battle anyway against the flesh, because we're going to have that. But so then those children of that milieu, during that time, grow up. And one of the articles I read from, I can't remember the author's name, is a female author who was a Christian who deconstructed and all that kind of stuff. And now she was very anti. I was so harmed by 90s purity culture. You mean you were harmed by people telling you not to go out and sleep around? And her point was, yes, I was. I missed out on opportunities that my friends had. And they promised that we'd have this dynamic sexual relationship in marriage. And almost nobody ever actually promised that kind of stuff. That just, I'm sure there are always extremists out there, but that just was not the norm. That wasn't the culture, so to speak. But anyway, as they're going through this, then those people, like you said, they still have this worldly view, but they feel like they've been constrained by religious rules. So then they end up growing up, getting married, having kids. And now, like, wait a minute, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I thought I could have my cake and eat it too. I thought I could follow the Christian world, the Christian rules, the morality here, because I was supposed to, and get all the benefits of my parents and grandparents, the happy family that I thought I was supposed to have, the Hallmark movie promises, and also all of the excitement that I see in the romantic novels of or whatever else. I could have my cake and eat it too. That's not real. It's never been real. Nobody with a half a brain has ever said that it should be. But an entire generation of people doing that. Couple that with the generations before who just kept severing the consequences from the choices, kept on separating morality from reality. And when all of that kind of swirls together, we get this tornado that we've been in, so that now again, it's old sins. It's nothing. None of this is new. Jesus is talking about it in the first century. Moses is talking about it, all these years BC. None of it's new. But when we keep on buying the old lies, repackaging it in a different way, recycling it, let's run it back, then we end up where we are now. So now we have across the board, let me say, the American church at large. I can't speak to other places in the world the same way, although you can see from national headlines, Europe has pretty much thrown away the gospel in so many ways. But in Africa and some other places, you're seeing an increase in connection to God's word. But what we're seeing in the American church is, even within the church, we have not talked about at any kind of a deeper level what marriage is.
Right.
And if we don't understand what marriage is, then getting it wrong doesn't mean that much to us
Right.
until it's too late, until we've already done it. So when Jesus talks about it, he goes back, we'll see in, I'm not going to read it right now, but in Matthew 19, they're testing him on divorce. Is divorce okay for whatever reason? And, they're trying to get him to go back to Moses. He goes back to Genesis and says, that's not how God created this to be. We are made, people will say, well, humans, Andrew Tate's pushing this. We're not made for monogamy. This isn't, how we've evolved. There's no, I just heard for the first time in probably a year, I just heard the term manosphere. So it's in my head. I heard that a couple of years ago, and then just recently. So it's the Andrew Tates of the world, the people that are out there, trying to push this so-called hyper masculine thing. I think it's anti-masculine, but it's kind of like the feminists that push things that are anti-women, in the name of being pro-women. And this is I guess you could say, masculinists who are doing the same thing, that marriage there's literally no benefit to men in marriage. Women are holding you down and all that kind of stuff. So now you've created these two paths that are so, it just makes unity and even really the fabric of society impossible at this point. It creates an anarchistic morality. It creates an anarchistic mindset. And as they're talking about all of those kinds of things out there, they're going in these directions. Too many of us in the church just don't get it.
Right.
We don't go back and say, well, God created us, designed us. It's built into us specifically to be monogamous. Now, that doesn't mean that, we're because we're moral creatures. We're not like bald eagles or turkeys or whatever else.
You just want to make the bald eagle noise, and I'm not going to.
We don't do things by instinct.
Right.
We do things according to choices and
we have
morality.
a prefrontal cortex.
And when you look at the animals that mate for life, and we come up with stories, oh, that's so sweet. It's really not sweet. They're doing what they're biologically programmed to do by God's design, but they're not making moral choices. It's not like the eagle is saying, oh, I love you so much, I'll sacrifice for you, and I'm going to give up They don't know what they're doing. They're just doing it because that's how they're supposed to do it. We are not beasts. We do make choices. And Jesus here, and we didn't even really get into the whole remarriage element of it.
And I have so many other questions, but
which is, again, why we could and in some ways should do a lot more on this, but we just can't do it all at once. But if we can get people to think about what marriage is, I'll be very thrilled. So when Jesus is talking about this, what he's not doing here is saying, here's the technicalities. Right. Here, if you do this, then technically you're exempt from your marriage. And you say, no, wait a minute, stop.
Yeah.
Just stop thinking of marriage that way. This is a one man, one woman, for life endeavor, period. Anything else is wrong. Any other option is bad. And I'm saying this with my dear friend who is divorced, right? We're sitting here having this conversation, and this is not so much about, he's talking about when if you get married, then afterwards, then you're in an adulterous situation. His point isn't about that. His point is the whole adultery thing violates marriage. Anything that doesn't see marriage as permanent and from God violates marriage. And if we're not getting this whole thing right, and if he were continuing this conversation, and we see this from Paul as well, Jesus alludes to it in other places, but if we were continuing this conversation, we'd see that all sexual immorality, in fact, when he says except for sexual immorality, that is the Greek term porneia, which involves all of it, right? It's all of these things. That's where we get the term pornography. It's pictures of sexual immorality,
Right.
images of it. So when we are looking at this concept here, Jesus is throwing all of it into the same pot in a lot of ways. So the fornication that happens prior to marriage, same boat.
Yep.
The things that we do to get this wrong are destroying, distorting, betraying the reflection of God's faithfulness and purity, which is at the heart of the command.
We're super overtime, but
Super
like,
overtime.
and again,
We
we
should
could
rename the podcast
super
that.
overtime, but we could talk a lot more too because I have more things to say, and I know Rich does. So anyway, but we'll stop there, and we are going to move forward this week into our
If we had time, we could do a second episode.
Well,
But
next commandment. So yeah, if you are in the area, come join us on Sunday mornings. Otherwise, you can check the sermons out online afterward or live streamed at 10. And we hope to catch you guys next time.
indeed.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging, YouTube.
Ciao, YouTube.
Oh no.